So I think we're just waiting for a few more people to return. But as most of you are lying down, just take the opportunity for yourself to check in on how you're lying. And you could, observe how your body's contacting the floor and the accumulative effect of all the ATMs you've done today and over the weeks. And bend both of your knees and bring your feet to the floor. The lesson that I'm going to teach you has some similarities to what I taught you yesterday, but also some differences. And it's a bit of an amalgamation. It comes from Moshe's book, Master Moves. And in the lesson, he starts off with what we've been doing, this segment of the movements of the abdomen, and exploring what happens as you push your abdomen out and then as you pull it in. And as you start to do that, you can feel how the abdomen expands and then gets pulled in. And to help you be able to really feel that, you're going to have your right hand somewhere on your abdomen below your belly button and your left hand on your sternum. And continue with that movement of as the abdomen rounds and fills, expands, how you may feel the chest and the sternum flattening. And then as you pull your abdomen in, how the chest could expand. And I was sitting on the train today, and so my habit for teaching is that, I read my notes on the way to the station, and I was thinking of, an image to go with this expansion and I'll say retraction, for a better word, of the abdomen, of the pulling in. And all I could come up with was a balloon, but more, like you have those clowns sometimes that make models out of balloons. So the balloon I had in mind was like a long sausage balloon that wasn't totally filled with air, so that when you pressed the air, it went further up the balloon. And then as you pressed it in that compartment, it went back down. But we're not dealing with air in the movement, but you're just dealing with the muscles of the abdomen and the chest and feeling the relationship as one, in a sense, pushes out, how the other one would flatten or pull in. And as you pay attention to that movement, observe what's happening to your breath. So is the breath in the background doing its own thing? Or is your breath, I was going to say connected, or are you using your breath in the same rhythm as you're doing the movement? So is the breath independent of the movement, or is it somehow coordinated with it? And then inhale and hold your breath and continue the movement of the abdomen. And you could observe how many movements you do of the rounding of the abdomen and then the pulling of it in before you need to breathe out. And then you could repeat that again, sort of breathing in, pausing, and feeling how, as you're holding your breath, how you can continue that movement of pulling the abdomen in as the chest expands, and then pushing the abdomen out and flattening the chest. And continue the movement of the abdomen and chest, but now change over your breathing so that you breathe out and then you extend your exhalation. So you hold the breath after breathing out and you continue to do the movement. And then take a pause and just allow yourself to breathe however you like. And change over the position of your hands, just for the point of variation. And it'd be interesting as you continue to do this movement with the abdomen, if having, your hands in the opposite configuration, if that changes what you sense. So one hand's on your sternum, your knees are up to the ceiling, the other hand is somewhere on the lower belly, and you're doing the movement of pulling the abdomen in and then pushing it out. And now increase the speed of the movement of the abdomen. So it's sort of staccato. So the abdomen's moving in and out quickly. And observe if your breath follows the abdomen by increasing the speed of your breathing. Or notice if you can breathe independently of the movement. And what happens if you exhale through your mouth? So you could slow the movement of the abdomen down and just think of breathing in through the nostrils, but allowing the air to come out of your mouth. And again, does that somehow change the connection of the breath with the movement? And then let it go. Allow your legs to go long. And rest quietly and notice, what effect has that had on how you're breathing. Okay. And bend your knees once more and bring both feet to the floor. So the knees are bent and your feet are resting on the floor. And pay attention to how your feet are pointing and how you've got your feet positioned. So are your toes pointing straight ahead from you, or does one foot turn inward, or the toes turn in, or both feet turn in, or both feet or one foot turn out? Now start to explore what it's like to turn the front of your feet inward. So the toes of the front foot come together. It's like you're pivoting on the heel and the front of your foot comes together. And then you pivot on your heel and the front of your foot moves apart. And do that a few times and feel, is one more familiar to you than the other? And then find a place between those two extremes for your feet to rest. And start to lift both heels away from the floor. And feel how the weight shifts to the front of your foot. So your feet are still in standing, but you're just lifting the heels off the floor. And then you could lift the front of your foot off the floor. So you could sort of rock your foot between the toes or the front of the foot and the heel. And continue to do that movement and allow that movement to be combined with what you've just done of turning the 2 feet in towards each other and then turning them out. And feeling that how far do your feet turn outward? In the lesson, Feldenkrais talks about thinking again of a cultural perspective and of the time when he maybe wrote the lesson or what he thought of, and the turning out of the feet, he had the celebrity Charlie Chaplin in mind, and then of turning the feet in. And continue to do that until you find a place where you feel comfortable for yourself that the feet stand best for you. And it looks like most of you have now found a position for your feet to stand. And in that position, start pushing through both of your feet and allow your pelvis to rock towards your head. So we did this yesterday, the idea of pushing through the feet, sensing the connection from the feet via the hips joint to the pelvis, and then allowing the pelvis to rock toward the head so the tailbone lifts, and then it goes up through your spine to your head. And do that various times of just pushing through the feet and feeling the upward movement. So your feet are flat on the floor and you're just pressing into the floor as if you're wanting to push something away, you're really pushing down and feeling the connection of the pelvis and the tailbone lifting from the floor and the lower back coming toward the floor. And then expand upon the movement so that you can pull through your feet. So my idea was that there's less pressure on my feet and I do something with my legs to create a movement that my pelvis rocks towards my feet and there's more of an arch in my lower back. And go from one to the other. So once you're deliberately pushing through your feet and then you're pulling with your feet and legs, so the pelvis rocks in the opposite direction. And so in this part of the lesson, I went back to thinking of what we did with Susan last week and Spiffer, and how to me the idea was how you can find a place where your feet give you a foundation, so one of the F's, so that you can do this movement with the least E in effort in this position. So now take your feet far away from your bottom, so you really got them, say, another 20 centimeters away from your bottom, and try the movement in that position. So you're taking the feet away from your bottom first, more than you'd normally have them away, so that, there's not as sharp an angle at the knees as there normally would be, and the feet are further away. And as you do this movement of pushing the feet and rocking the pelvis and then pulling with the legs in the other direction, feel what it's like with the legs in this position. And then bring the feet very close to your bottom, as close as possible, and do the movement from there. And just make it he does get into the oscillating movements, but for now, just do it more of a discrete movement of the pelvis, so that you can sense where are your feet going to provide you with the best foundation. And then play with the distance of your feet and the proximity away from your bottom, of where can the feet make the movement easier. And when you found that movement, do just a few more movements and then take a pause. And when you're pausing, lie with your legs long, because some people have taken a rest. And so I'm trying not to say so, which I think my attention has been drawn to also as well. Now feel, and now's another one, but notice how you're lying with your legs long. And return to having your knees bent. And find a place for your feet. After all those variations of placing your feet, bring your feet to the place that you discovered works best for you. And continue with this movement of pushing into the ground and feeling how the pelvis responds and how the movement gets transmitted up towards your head. And then feeling how you can sort of pull with the legs and the pelvis rocks towards your feet. And notice what that does to your head. And gradually increase the speed of your movement. And make it more like, I think it talks of jelly or like blancmange, that it's a easy, simple, pudding-like movement that's going up through your whole system, starting at the feet with the push or the pull and connecting through the spine to the head. And as you go more quickly, does that assist you with the transmission of the force up toward the head? And as you're making the quick little movements, what's happening to your chin? Are you doing more of that sliding motion of the head on the floor? Or is your chin coming away from your chest and returning to your chest? And then reduce the speed of the movement and make it into a discrete motion in both directions. And imagine that you've got something on the back of your head. He has chalk, but it could be paint on the back of your head. And you're going to keep your chin in the one position. So you're going to hold your chin in the same relationship to your throat and chest. And you're going to do the movement with your head in that position and feel how that imaginary substance on your head could draw a vertical line because your head's sliding up and down. So you're doing the movement of the pelvis, but you're imagining that there's something on the back of your head and that your neck isn't going to change its shape. It's just going to stay still because your chin is held in the one position. So this is the skewer-like movement, that the movement's going up through the pelvis, through the spine, to your head, and your head is sliding on the floor. And then leave it. And we're going to come back to the same movement shortly and explore the opposite pattern with the head. Because one of the things that I think Zoran alluded to in his talk earlier this morning about how, in Feldenkrais we increase the possibilities. We increase our possibilities in our actions in the world and how we move. And by having more than one choice of how the head moves in response, well, I guess sorry, I didn't phrase that very well, but by being able to use the head or the head respond in two different ways as you're doing this movement, then you have the choice of what you do. And with that in mind, bend your knees and bring your feet to the floor. And this time think you're doing the same movement with pushing into the floor and allowing the pelvis to respond. But now you're thinking of the neck as more of a wave-like movement, so that the chin will come away from the chest and throat as you push upward, and then as you go down, it will return to the throat. So now your chin is moving, and feel the difference in the back of your neck, how in this movement, the back of the neck will also change its shape as the chin moves closer to the chest and further away. You're still doing exactly the same with your feet. You're just changing the response of the head to the movement. And then stop the movement of your pelvis and lie with your legs in the same way as you are. And now start just rocking your head so that the chin comes closer to your throat and then it moves away from your throat. And feel if you can do this rocking motion of your head without engaging the pelvis. Or as you do the rocking motion of the head, does your pelvis come along from the ride? So it might have to be a very small movement of the head, not to include the pelvis, or you might find that there's a bit of sliding on the head. But explore the rocking movement of the head so the chin comes towards the throat and away from the throat. And then start to include your pelvis in the movement. So feel, in a way it's a downward movement. Before the movement was going up from the pelvis to the head, but now see if you can explore when would the pelvis move downward in relationship to the chin and when would it move upward. And play with the two responses of the head. So return to initiating the movement from your feet and the pelvis. And maybe once or twice you allow the head to respond with this rocking type of motion. And then you make that change so the movement of the head is like the skewer, that it slides along the floor instead of rocks. So just alternating the movement, you're continuing the movement of the pelvis. And so once you're allowing the head to rock on the floor, and then you're changing it to allowing the head to slide on the floor. So the chin's still in one, and then there's movement of the chin in the other. And then leave it alone and find a way to transition into a pause. And bend your left knee and bring the left foot to standing. So your right leg's going to be long and your left foot is standing with the knee up toward the ceiling. So right leg long, left knee is up toward the ceiling. And rock your pelvis by pushing through the left foot. So use your left foot now to push into the floor and to pull away from the floor so that the pelvis is rocking and feeling what this more asymmetrical configuration, how that affects the transmission of the movement up towards your head. So does the movement go more to one side? Does it go up to the middle of your body? Or do you feel more movement in one shoulder blade than the other shoulder blade. And as you push through one foot, you can also notice what happens to the chest. And then keep the left leg where it is and bend the right knee and cross your right leg over the left knee. And again here, you're going to push through the left foot and feel how the rocking of the pelvis, how the force goes through your system. And do a few discrete movements with the left foot where it is. And then move your left foot about 20 centimeters to your left with your legs crossed and do the movement from there and feel if that changes how the force travels through your body as you push through the left foot. Does it somehow create an asymmetry in your torso so that certain parts press more into the floor than other parts? And then move your left foot toward the right and do the movement from there. And notice with each variation of the position of your foot, how that creates a different pathway. So you could think of a different trajectory or the pathway of movement from spiffer from the foot up towards the head. And uncross your legs. And lie briefly with the legs long. And how are you breathing as you're pausing? What's happening to how your body's imprinting itself on the floor? And return to that last position, that your left foot is on the floor and your right leg is crossed over the left knee. And now lift your left shoulder from the floor. And you could put your left arm across your body so it's somewhere towards the right. And continue to do the same movement of pushing through the left foot and feeling if the movements, again, is resonating a different way up through your back, if different parts of your ribs are in contact with the floor. So your legs are crossed and your left shoulder is off the floor. So your left arm's reaching somewhere toward the right as you do the movement. And now bring your left arm up into the air, so it's up towards the ceiling, and continue to do the rocking motion of the pelvis. And every time, or it doesn't need to be every time, but gradually you're going to take your left hand more and more toward the right. And you're going to roll your body toward the right so that the head rolls towards the right and your left hand comes somewhere towards the floor on the right side of your body. And go slowly. You don't need to go 1 degree by degree, but explore each as you go further and further over how certain parts of your back and ribs will come away from the floor and certain parts will press more into the floor. And then when you've rolled as far as you can toward the right side, and if possible, your left foot is still flat on the floor and your legs across because you're still wanting to push through that left foot and do the rocking motion. And your head is turned right toward your right clavicle. And when your arm is over to the right, the arm stays there and you just rock with the head turned toward the right a few times. And then you can roll your head toward the left as if you were looking towards the left clavicle or the left shoulder, and continue the rocking with your head toward the left. And then leave it and take a rest. And how can you use the rest to refresh you? So if you think of like a micro pause or a micro break to recharge your battery. And bend your left knee again. Bring the right leg over the left. This time bring your right arm to rest on the floor, somewhere up towards your head, with the back of the hand on the floor and the elbow straight. And now roll toward your right side and bring your left hand in a push-ups position on the right side of your body. So you're now rolling toward your right and the left hand is in a push-ups position somewhere, I'd say, below the armpit towards the right side of your body. So you've quite rolled over toward the right, but remember the movement that we've been doing has been about pushing through the foot to allow the pelvis to roll. So you have to keep that in mind, and how far are you going to roll toward the right, because you want your left foot on the floor with the leg crossed, but you roll toward the right. with the arm up by your head. And now push through the foot and create that rocking motion. And feel which shoulder moves more, which shoulder blade moves more along the, can you get a sense of a line of transmission going from the left foot through the hip and the pelvis up toward the right hand, so the right hand could slide and lengthen on the floor and then come back. And feel the right ribs and the right chest. What happens, how does the chest and the ribs need to change shape and respond to this very twisted position? And remember, like any twist, you don't have to go the whole way. You can just go a little bit toward your right and find a place, if it's not a push-ups position, but with the left hand toward the right, and the arm above your head to do the movement. And can you breathe as you're doing this? And then unwind yourself, unravel yourself. And as you lie on the floor with your legs long, having done that very contorted configuration and rocked your pelvis through pushing through the foot, what effect has that had on both sides of your chest and your upper back and lower back? Do you feel the ribs more clearly on one side than the other side? And do your shoulder blades lie differently from left to right? Bring this time your right foot to standing and your left arm up above your head with the back of the hand on the floor and with the elbow straight. So your right foot standing, your left leg is long, and the left arm is somewhere above your head, resting on the floor towards the left. And roll onto your left side as much as possible. And if it's possible, bring your right hand into a push-ups position. Sorry? It doesn't specify if your head's on the arm. And now you're not going to do the rocking motion of the pelvis. You're going to explore the movement of the abdomen and the chest. So in this pattern, again, expand your chest, round it, and then pull it in, and feel the response of the chest as you push the lower abdomen out. You could have the sense of the chest flattening, and then you pull the abdomen in, and you could feel how the ribs expand. And continue that movement with the abdominal muscles and the chest. And feel how the ease of the movement. So you've just got the right foot standing, the left, you'll roll toward your left. and you're doing the movement of your abdomen. And now roll over and change your legs and your arm and do the same thing in the opposite direction. So you're doing the mirror image. So now your left leg is standing, the right leg is long. You're bringing the left hand in a push-ups position and you're doing the pushing out of the abdomen and the pulling the abdomen in. And feel the responsiveness in your chest on this side. Is there more natural, I'm thinking of flexibility, or do the ribs, having done all the movements you did before, do they have a responsiveness that makes this pushing in and pulling in and pushing out the abdomen easier to do? Does it feel different to the other side that you did it on? And when you've explored that, I'm going to say to your satisfaction, return to the other side and again compare what it's like doing the same thing to the other side. And having gone from one side to the other, is there already less of a difference between the two sides? So now you've got your right leg standing, you roll toward your left, and you're pushing the abdomen out and pulling it in and feeling what happens in your chest as you do that, and how you're breathing. You know, how independent is your breath from the movement? And now I'll give you a choice. You can either return to doing the same thing to the other side, or you can come onto your back and lie with your legs long. And that'll depend if you want to feel the differences from side to side a bit more, or if you're ready to take a pause. And if you're still exploring the movement, bring it to completion and find a way to roll onto your backs. And find an easy way to roll onto your stomach or the front side of your body. And bring your hands into a push-ups position. So your hands are on either side of you in a push-ups position. And bend your feet so that your toes are on the floor, so you could push through your feet and your toes. And start to push through your feet and allow the pelvis to roll upward. So, and you can do the movement slowly a few times, but feel how as you push through your feet, the pelvis is rocking. And then increase the speed and push through the feet and feel the transmission from the feet up towards your head. And bring your head just a little bit away from the floor. Just lift it off the floor so that you haven't got any friction of the nose or chin, but the head's up in the air as you do the movement. And your arms are in a push-ups position. And feel how the movement of your head. So again, this is more like the idea of the skewer, that by the head being lifted from the floor, your neck muscles have to work. So the head tends to move up and down and not rock on the floor. And naturally, you know, pause when you need to and return the head to the floor. And then if you want to do a few more movements, do that. But now we're going to continue for the rest of the lesson pretty much on your stomach. And then just find a way to take a brief pause on your stomach. And bring your arms up back into a push-ups position, but allow your forehead this time to be on the floor. And you're going to bend your feet and bring the toes to the floor. And feel here as you push through your feet with the forehead on the floor, what happens. So feel what happens to the movement. And feel what happens in the chest and your abdomen and across your shoulders. So as your forehead's on the floor, what's happening in your shoulders? Do your shoulders get closer to the ground or do they move away from the ground? And then find a way to, if you're comfortable, to pause on your stomach. And come back to the arms being in a push-up position and your feet are bent so the toes are on the floor. So I've gone back to having the arms in a push-up position. Your feet are bent backwards so the toes are on the floor. And now you're going to alternate between the two options with the head. So you're going to lift the head from the floor. So it's not a large lift. It's just like to stop any friction of the nose with the floor, but you're holding your head up and you're pushing through your feet and making an oscillation, a jelly-like movement through the body with your head away from the floor, and feeling the response, if you keep your head away from the floor, of what happens in the head. And then you're bringing your forehead to the floor and noticing the difference. If there's more of a rocking movement of the head, if the forehead's on the floor. And feel how the elbows move with the movement. And your shoulders. So your shoulders have a sense of how they're moving in relationship to the floor, if they come closer to the floor as you push up or closer to the floor as you push down. And then give yourself a pause, and either, if you're comfortable, stay on your front side. If you want, you can roll onto the back, knowing that we're going to come back onto the stomach. And if you've chosen to pause in a place that isn't lying on the front side of your body, on your tummy, come back to lie in your tummy with your arms in a push-ups position and with the feet in that same place, with the toes on the floor and the feet bent. But this time you're going to bring your chin to the floor. So you're resting your chin on the floor and you're doing that oscillation through the feet up towards your head with the chin on the floor, and feel what happens in your spine and sternum. So as you push through your feet, and I mean, you can choose a rhythm that makes it easier for you to start with, but explore going a little bit quicker so you get the sensation of it moving through your system, but then reduce the speed and make more of a discrete movement, and have a sense of how the tips of your shoulders are going to move backward in relationship to yourself. So backward being more in the direction of the ceiling, so that in a sense you're going to be arching that upper part of your back. And if it was going to be a large movement, it would be as if you were thinking, you know, of arching the upper back and looking a little bit along the wall toward the ceiling as you push through your feet. And then as you come back, that would reduce. So think of some of the lessons that I taught you last week, you know, that idea of the head moving backward and the sternum sliding upward, and the spine sort of moving lower toward the ground as the shoulders are moving back. And then continue the pushing through the feet, but change the head so that you bring your forehead to the floor and feel how that is now. And if by doing the movements of the chin, is that somehow informed or giving you more information in this position? And then lift your head from the floor and do a few more rocking motions with, like you're looking, so the head's lifted, but it's still facing downward to the floor. So the back of your neck is long. And then let it go and take a pause. And again, you can choose how you do that. If you want to roll onto your side or onto your back, we're going to do a few more things on the stomach. Come back onto your stomach, because we're entering into the final phase of the lesson. And have your forehead resting on the floor. And now think of that movement of your abdomen. So your arms are just somewhere by your head. You can, and think of pushing your tummy into the floor. So you're pushing the tummy out. And then you're pulling the tummy in. And as you do that, feel what parts of the abdomen are coming toward the floor and away from the floor, and what parts of the chest. And if it's the same on the left and the right side. Now cross your right leg over your left leg so that you're taking more pressure on the left side of your chest. So it doesn't have to be drastic, but just a little bit. And continue with that movement of pushing your abdomen out and pulling it in, and feeling how you can press the left side of the abdomen and the left side of the chest more into the floor compared with the right side. And I wasn't very specific about the hand position, so now do that with your arms in a push-ups position, if they're not there. And if your arms are in a push-ups position, feel which hand presses more into the floor as you push the abdomen into the floor, and then you pull the abdomen inward so that the left part of your chest comes more toward the floor. And then uncross your legs and just have your forehead on the floor. And in that position, see if you can continue and bend your feet backward so that your toes are on the floor, and do a few more movements of the abdomen and see if you can feel more of the left side of the abdomen pushing into the floor. And then as it pulls inward, the left part of the chest coming onto the floor. And then leave the abdominal movement and go back to doing a few movements with your forehead on the floor of just pushing up through the feet and feeling how the head can rock in this position. And roll onto your backs. And feel what all of these various movements lying on your stomach, how that's affected how you're lying. And before we come up to standing and finish the day by going into your teaching groups, bend your knees and bring your feet to the floor. And go back to the movement that we did very early on in the session about pushing your feet into the floor and rocking your pelvis toward your head, and then pulling on the legs and rocking your pelvis towards your feet. And notice now how the transmission is going through your body from your pelvis towards your head. And how much easier and simpler that may have become. And then let it go. And find a way to roll over onto your side and come up to standing. And feel how that is. Is that, what effect has that lesson had on how you're standing? And start to walk around the room. And gradually take your attention more, allow yourself to carry over the lesson into your walking. And then as you continue walking around, also take your attention more to the people around you, so that you're becoming a little bit more external. And continue to walk and to find the people in your teaching groups. And then congregate together. And for the last 15 minutes or so of the day, you're going to have a chat about feedback